Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tuts, and today we're going to be learning our first bit of CSS3, and we're going to introduce some new ideas here into CSS, something you haven't done before, some of the ideas with vendor prefixes, okay? And what vendor prefixes are, is it's a prefix onto your CSS property targeting specific browsers made by specific vendors. So, if you remember before here, we have our properties, right? Well, let's say only Firefox supported background for whatever reason, and they only supported it with the vendor prefix of Moz, because that is Mozilla's vendor prefix. In this case of background, we would write that as hyphen MOZ, or MOZ hyphen. We are going to be using this idea in future properties here that we go over, because not all of the spec is complete, but you can still use some of these properties with vendor prefixes, and they'll be supported on older browsers. So if you recall on the Level Up Tuts site, of course the site that is not in any stage of being complete, we had this one page up before where we had these the different types of tutorials we have, and this was just real basic, and see they kind of move when you hover over them. But you'll notice we had these icons that we're using here, but this box and this box, they have rounded edges. It's not something that we've seen so far in CSS. There's been nothing to do rounded edges other than using an image. There used to be some really old image techniques where you would have transparent corners as an image and you drop it on top of your div. I mean, it's just it's unnecessary now. It's saving you so much hassle. If the designer comes to you with rounded corners, then it's no longer a big deal. And it wasn't a huge deal, but it was always a pain. So let's talk about what browsers support border radius. If you are an IE user, Internet Explorer, you're only going to be seeing border radius on versions 9 and the latest version 10. And then for Firefox, you're going to see border radius working from 4 and more current. And Chrome, border radius is supported all the way back to version 5, Safari version 5, Opera version 10.5, iOS Safari is version 4, Android version 2.2 for the browser, BlackBerry's browser supports it in version 7, Opera Mobile in 11, and Chrome has always supported it for Android, Firefox for Android's always supported it. However, there is one thing you need to know about this. Remember when we talked about browser prefixes before, or vendor prefixes, we said that they support a little bit more, right? If you have people in Firefox that need to see this rounded edges that are using Firefox version 3, they're not totally out of luck here. Using a vendor prefix, you can use border radius going all the way back to version 2. Using a -WebKit prefix, you can use it on version 4 in Chrome and 3.1, 3.2, and 4 in Safari, as well as iOS Safari at 3.2 and Android at 2.1. So as you can see, using these vendor prefixes are only going to widen your progressive enhancement. And that's a term we went over in the previous video. So let's go ahead and do something real quick. Let's make some rounded corners. In fact, let's just try to do something similar to what we were doing on the Level Up site. I'm going to do background, and I'm going to set the background beige to this tan color. Make sure. Cool. All right, it's not great looking. Whatever. And let me just take some put some padding on the whole thing. Let's just do universally 20 pixels. Okay, so we can see these all here, and in our list item, let's add 10 pixels of padding as well. Okay, cool, looking a little bit more close. Okay, well, in any other CSS property, all we had to do was type border, and then now, of course, the property is radius, so border radius, and then in our border, colon, in our border radius, you just give it what border radius you want. So let's say you want this to be super curvy, we'll say 20 pixels. And refresh, and you can see this border, it now has a border radius of 20 pixels, as in the radius of the border itself is 20 pixels. Okay, well, this is pretty cool. I mean, this doesn't look great, but let's see what happens if I add a little bit more subtle 5 pixels. It's going to look a little bit better. Cool, so now it's not totally rigid, it's not totally angular, but at the same time, it's not totally goofy. So you can see how border radius can really just sort of help designs look a little bit cooler. And it's not something I would throw on everything, right? If the design has border radius, then use border radius, but just maybe now don't throw it on everything on your project. It makes sense when it makes sense, right? So what happens if you're saying, I want a different border radius for some corners than others? Well, just like we had with other properties, we can space this out, and let's see what happens when we do 5 pixels, 20 pixels, 40 pixels, and then 0. Okay, let's refresh our page and check out what we got. Let me pull this back here. Starting in the top left, we have 5 pixels. Then going clockwise, we have 20 pixels, 40 pixels, and 0 pixels. And let's say we did just 5 and 20. Refresh, now we have 5, 20, 5, 20, clockwise around, just like you'd expect, and we have some interesting shapes. So already you can see what cool stuff is happening with CSS3, with sort of more interesting things you can make. Okay, so this is border radius, and we mentioned earlier about vendor prefixes. Well, this page is only going to be supported in the browsers I told you in the beginning, and if we wanted it supported in Firefox version 3, to add that vendor prefix, all we have to do is we can copy this, we can paste this in here, and then right here we're going to do -moz border radius, and you'll notice that we're displaying this twice. When we refresh this, you're not going to see a difference. This is only going to affect these older Mozilla browsers that are looking for this MOZ vendor prefix. Okay, well that does it for border radius. As always, if you have any questions, please leave a question in the video. Hit us up in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking on Twitter. It's @LevelUpTuts or @STolinsky. Let me know. As always, this is Scott, and thanks for watching. Bye.